the mighty and resilient Merrimack River, carving through the communities of our great region. My name is Linda Lorden, proud president of Merrimack County Savings Bank, and like the river that serves as our namesake, we're a constant yet ever-changing presence. Because to us, it's bigger than banking. It's about powering communities and putting people first. It's about knowing where you came from and where you're going. That's Merrimack style. Visit us at themerrimack.com.
Welcome to the Old Souls and Seekers podcast, a podcast that transcends the typical personal development journey. You're not new to this. You've read the books, attended the seminars, and perhaps even tried various coaching programs, yet something still feels amiss. Elon and Guy have over 2 decades of relentless searching and $1 million invested in their personal growth quest. Here's the revelation. You're not missing anything. You're not even behind. You might have just been searching in the wrong places. In each episode, we'll uncover the most effective, straightforward practices that have profoundly impacted our lives and the tens of thousands of our clients from all over the world. This is about real, sustainable results for those dedicated to their personal and spiritual growth. So get ready to explore and enjoy the show.
All right. What's up, y'all?
Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I hope you guys, whoever was in the States, had a good, long weekend. How's your day?
Uneventful. home, which is a really good event these days.
You labored on Labor Day?
I did some labor on Labor Day.
You know it's against the law.
I washed cars. I did work outside of my garden and around my lawn, stuff like that.
Things a lot of tomato sauce.
I canned a lot of tomatoes. I fermented watermelons. I'm living like I'm on a farm, practicing as if one day I'll have a farm.
Yeah. You do, kind of. I mean, it's a small farm, but you have something.
We have a lot. We have a lot of things.
Yeah. More things than most.
There's a really good feeling that's a little bit addicting, which is once you start having food to eat in your backyard, to go out there and pick something off of a fruit or a vine and eat it right away. You could just feel it hits different. I was looking at some studies. They started looking at how long does it take after you, let's say, remove something from a vine or a tree, and how long does its nutritional content last. You know, like let's say you eat an orange, you think you're getting vitamin C. You're not getting vitamin C. It's extremely fast that it degrades. I mean, like within days, it's like 90%, 95% nutritional value is gone.
Wow.
So it's not a joke, right? Like the farm to table idea makes sense. Like, you know, there's the moment you take something off, it's in its dying phase. I mean, like how long does any plant last when you cut it off? Not very long. So there's think about Colombia, for example. Everything's farm to table. How do you feel every day?
Amazing.
Totally different after a few days of eating food that's right from that place and made directly for you. And, you know, we've lost that, and it's sad. And I've had multiple experiences now that tell me, like, if we don't go back to that, we're going to have a problem. I haven't shared this in a while, but some point this year, I don't remember exactly when it was, maybe 7 or 8 months ago, I did not a real hunting trip, but I went out with a hunter to understand that lifestyle, shooting guns and homesteading. And it wasn't about killing an animal. It was about getting back to more ancestral ways of living. It was the premise of the program. I wouldn't senselessly go kill an animal ever. I think that's crazy, but I learned to value that lifestyle immensely. And what I learned, there's this idea, I think, that when people hunt animals, it's like a vicious act. And
it can be.
And it can be. There's some truth to that, right? Like somebody goes to poach a rhinoceros or a giraffe in Africa, like, okay. And again, I've heard some claims to even why that stuff has rationale, like why they, I'm not saying against somebody who does it outside the law, but there's reasons for these kind of things that I don't want to get into now. But ultimately, what I wanted to say is if you're somebody who values the quality of your food, you understand the value of organic or regenerative, especially regenerative farming, ironically, even if you're a vegetarian, your ideals, this may not make any sense right now, but I hope it does, line up a lot more with that of a hunter's than of anybody else on this planet.
Say more.
Because if a lot of people turn to veganism or vegetarianism because they don't want to see animals harmed.
Okay.
And a lot of that is because when we industrialized animals, cows and pigs and all that kind of stuff, beyond the fact that they're being treated maliciously, those are very unhappy animals who are filled with disease and filled with antibiotics and all this kind of stuff. I imagine part of the reason you've chosen that life is simply to give animals a fair chance, right? For as much as you can do to give animals a good life and say, hey, they don't need to be killed. But a hunter doesn't senselessly kill an animal.
Yeah.
At least the ones that do it in a more pure way. First of all, to hunt an animal is an insane amount of work. Okay. When a hunter kills an animal, the connection they have with that which they've taken life from, they value that life like no other. This is very, very different than a person who's buying meat at a store and has zero connection with their food. It's the exact opposite. The amount of work, tracking, butchering that goes into that animal. They freeze that animal. They care for every part of that animal. They eat that animal. They treat it like it's an honorable, dare I even say for some, a holy experience. And so if you care about the wellness of animals, when an animal is killed in the wild, sure, you may say, hey, that was a senseless, cruel act, but we are, whether you believe it or not, we are omnivores. Obviously, we can eat both, and it's an important part of our diet. And obviously, in nature, animals are killing each other too for the same reasons. But my point is that animal lived a very happy life. And while the end of its life may have been met with demise, a hunter's perspective is that they're always trying to get the cleanest shot possible, which is kind of right under here, under the rib and the clavicle. They want to get a shot from the heart. And I didn't even realize how much complexity goes into even choosing that shot. Like a hunter can walk around for days, 4 or 5 days at a time without taking a single shot. And the intention is always to take one shot to put the animal down and cause as little as pain as possible. And there's a whole science to how they do this. So again, like if your intentions are to have good food, again, that animal is happy its entire life. It's not filled with stress hormones. It's not filled with steroids and all these other things that they have to do in industrialized farming. Otherwise, everyone gets sick, which is why they do it.
Yeah.
Then you're much more in alignment with a hunter's lifestyle and like ancestry type of living than you are with factory farming. I totally agree with you guys. I think factory farming, I don't know if it should be outlawed, but it should be regulated and minimized greatly. And we should do everything that we can to let animals live on the land and regenerate the land and all that kind of stuff. We'll all be a bazillion times healthier for it. So look, I went into that experience not really knowing why I was going, but I had never hunted an animal or attempted to kill an animal. And I really had these realizations of how much we take our food supply for granted, how disconnected we are from what's happening over there. And I had an opportunity to kill a chicken. To take its life, and I tried and I couldn't do it because I wasn't really even quite sure how to do it, and the feeling of taking a life, I don't know, even killing a spider for me doesn't feel quite right. So we have a funny story about that from Colombia that maybe I'll leave for a different time. But I wanted to do it because I felt like there's something missing, and even for me, that little interaction of even trying to, and I would probably try again, to be honest. Sorry if you judge me for that. It was because I had this feeling that this is really missing in our society, and everyone should try to do that at least one time in their life. Because you're gonna value everything on your plate in such a different way when you realize that's, whether you think that's a good or a bad thing, someone else out there is doing that dirty work for you. That's a reality. Someone else is doing that, so you don't have to pay attention to that. And to force yourself to meet yourself in that place, you might make different decisions in your life. You might make different choices about how you get your food, how you source your food, the well care of animals, all this kind of stuff. And so for me, I kind of went in there just thinking these were like a bunch of gun-toting yahoos. And I left there and I was like, whoa, these people are pretty aligned. Now, again, I'm not saying that's everybody. And there's a wide spectrum of people who are out there shooting for sport and other stuff. But, your average person who grew up with hunting, the care they have for land, They like walking around in the outdoors is like a meditative practice for them because they've been trained to be aware of things that most of us haven't while they're on land. Like there's a lot that goes into it. It was an eye-opening experience for me that I would really regard highly and hope that most people who lived in urban environments and have never done something like that should be doing stuff like that I think it would really change people's minds and again, how they operate in this world. So, that's the thing, right? Doing the uncomfortable stuff. It's fucking uncomfortable, but it was transformative for me. And on the back of that, how has that impacted my life for anybody who's curious? We as soon as we did that, we started doing research and going out of our way to find a regenerative farm that we could buy an animal. And we took delivery of half a cow maybe like 4 weeks ago. So we bought 250 pounds, basically. Like, this cow was raised with the intention of being slaughtered eventually. But my family, we paid for that, and we got butchered half a cow just for us. That's living in the freezer in our garage right now. And that'll probably feed our family, I don't know, for the next 12 to 18 months, maybe more. We'll see how that turns out. But it's regeneratively farmed, good for the land, highest quality beef you could probably get, in that regard. And it's like now we have ownership of that animal, and every piece that we eat is just part of one animal. It's not like we go to the store and every steak we buy, somebody had to kill an animal for that part of the steak. And we have all this stuff, and we have our inventory. We know what parts of the animal we're eating, and it feels really, really different. And I don't think I would have done that had I not had that experience.
Yeah. It's interesting how everything that we do opens a pathway to other things. Like we were even talking to the coaches today, right? Like doing this work, you just find that you have gifts and curiosities that you never imagined. Like there's so many people that worked with us and they came to work with us because they were working on their business or whatever it might be, and then found their way into all these magical healing modalities and all these things that they just, when your worldview is this, you have access to this. It's like, sure. As you open to more and more and more, you just allow yourself to have a very different experience of life.
Well, that's the thing, right? If we don't go out and meet the people who we think that we have these antagonistic relationships with, you'll often find that probably like 95% of stuff we kind of agree on. What are the fundamentals, right? We all want to feel safe. We all want to experience well-being. We all want to have good, connected, and safe relationships. Like, I don't think you can go anywhere in the world and not find those fundamentals. Even in the most, extreme of cases where people live in certain orthodoxies or religions or cultures, like that's still the fundamentals of that culture and that religion, because that's a universal truth for all human beings, how we want to socialize. I think that's just baked into our biology and our spirituality, and you can't get away from that. Now, we have a lot of different ways that we tell that story, or we live in that world, blah, 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 and have different ways of trying to create customs to have those things, but we have those things. And even if you're on the opposite side of like a political spectrum, you just cannot understand how a person can think that way. Look, fundamentally, again, you have all these same beliefs. You might be trying to get there in different ways. Fine. But like, I think if you go spend some time with people, and instead of when it's uncomfortable, rejecting it, but when it's uncomfortable, like leaning in and really looking like, how did this person get to this? Why are there so many people that believe the same thing that's totally opposite than me? I don't need to vilify them. Like, how are, this world, our personal peace of mind, we're not going to find personal peace. We're not going to find peace on the planet by operating this way. It's silly. Again, we say this all the time in our live events. It's silly to believe that we're all going to get to a place of kumbaya and everybody thinks the same way. Like, that world is never coming. And so we shouldn't even try to attain that world. And so either we're going to spend time online, and I really don't think that many people do this. I think it's mostly media driven, and some of us get sucked into it from time to time. It's like, trying to get everyone to believe something or dismiss something else. And at least as far as I'm concerned, the media game, it plays both sides, and the intentions of what's underneath it is exactly the same. Like there's an agenda there, right? For people to get into some form of agreement, or to have a system continue its pervasiveness, regardless of the cost benefit there to the rest of us. So like, we need to wake up and just get a fucking clue, and you got to go spend some time with people who don't operate like you, or in different qualities, and and take the best of what's there. But if you come close to every experience, you're going to walk out of there with nothing but judgments. You know, like I remember when I signed up for that experience, I'm like, I don't even know why I'm going. I had no idea why I was going.
I remember you telling me.
There was not a bone in my body that was like, this is exciting for me. But what I knew was that this environment, even being around a lot of guns, is really uncomfortable for me. It's just not something, I didn't grow up with them around me. When I look at it, I'm like I can't get my mind off the fact that can kill somebody. Like, it's a killing machine, right? So I'm like, all right, we're just going to hold fucking things that if you point in the wrong direction, someone dies. Like, it just, I don't know. That just seems fundamentally crazy for me. These people took me out into the middle of nowhere. For all I knew, they were murdering me. You know, I was going out to this farm really in the middle of nowhere, but we had a lot of land and yardage to shoot from. And I went with one guy I trusted, who I kind of well know, but not super well know. And I spent 3 days with him, and I didn't do one activity there that I was like, ho hum, this is so exciting. Like, it's great, you know, but because of that discomfort, I was like, you know, if like the world ended tomorrow, like, how many of us could really provide what we need to survive in this world? There's very few people left. You know, I love that. I walked out of there with thinking, because I'm a New Yorker, and when you're a New Yorker, I'm sure you all have heard when you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And I walked out of there, I'm like, nope, no, you can't. Like, you can't. I'm like, there's 8 million people living in the city. Not one of them knows how to hunt for food. You all dead. All y'all dead. Not one of you knows how to fucking pick up a gun or hunt for anything. I'm like, dead. So you can make it here, but you can't make it there. Like, dead. Right? I'm like, so it's not true. I'm like, you can make it in the hardship of an urban environment and stress-filled fucking location, fine. I'm like, but those are skills you don't fucking have. And I'm like, I don't have those skills. And I think even as a man, as a provider, as somebody who's secure, like, there's almost like an unconscious, like, lack of confidence in yourself when you can't go out into nature and like build a fire shelter and get some food.
Basic stuff. Yeah.
Basic stuff. Cause it's so prime evil to who we were. And just to say this, like, this was a generation or two ago, normalized everywhere. Right up until 1950s, I don't think we had factory farms. So we went from an agricultural society, even here in the States, what was it, like 90% of people were farmers? That means 90% of people grew their own food. 90% of people went out and hunted, right? And again, we were living to some degree way more harmonious with nature. And of course, when we didn't have consumerism at the rate that we have it today, you had to make the most of every piece of resource you have. Every part of that animal had to be skinned, used for clothing, used for fat, for rendering, for oil, like in your house. Like, everything was used. Nothing is wasted. Today, I watch people get a chicken wing. It's like, bite, bite, put it down. Bite, bite, put it down. You go to any restaurant and you see like how much food people leave on their fucking plate. It drives me insane, right? Because there's so much waste in the culture that's unnecessary. I'm sure if we just took the waste and we try to feed the hungry, they'd all be fed. So again, it's like, what can we do to do that little extra something that really brings us back to our roots? You know, if you're a vegan or vegetarian, that's totally fine. You choose to do what you want to do. I tried a mostly plant-based diet for about 5 years. It didn't suit well my body. It certainly might work well for yours. I haven't seen it work for most people healthy all the way through. For some people, yes, if they know what they're doing. But like, at the end of the day, if, you know, like, coming back to that and understanding, like, this is how things were done well in a healthy way for millions of years. You know, again, same thing with our spirituality, same thing with our mental states. Like, we're seeing this degradation everywhere. And I would say part of that is this removal, not just from our supply chain of the food supply, but really from our connection to like how to be human on this earth, how to be an animal that we call human connected to this earth. And the more disconnection we have from that field of energy and that consciousness, I think the more we lose our way. And I do think it's important to kind of try to find that back. Like, I really wish when I was younger, and maybe when I'm older, if I have time, like, I want to do like a wilderness survival thing where they just put you out there. You have to like figure it out for a week or something like that, because, you know, it's important. It really is important for us to do that. They're you know, casually across most indigenous cultures, just like Elon's kid just had a bar mitzvah in the religious sense, like, it was totally normal to put children out into the wilderness and say, you know, they had their spirit journey, and they would leave a boy or a girl, and they would come back a man or a woman into society. And that's how they were received back into society once they had learned and earned those skills, so to speak. And I wish we actually brought that back into our society.
Yeah. We were talking about this even when I was in Colombia about like Shy turning 13. And I remember I was like, you know, when boys turned 13, there was like a rite of passage that was part of tribes back in the day. Like they would send kids out into the wilderness, and if, you know, the kid didn't come back, it's like, you're just not ready. But we've lost a lot of those threads just because of the way that we live our lives today. I was actually just meditating before we got on here today, and I was even just thinking like having my kids go through something like Landmark for Teens, which they kind of stopped doing, I guess, during COVID or whatever it was. So I'm hoping that it's kind of reinstated, but like basic things that give kids different perspectives, you know, not just from mom and dad. I think that's what I notice is like kids can take certain things from parents, and there's a lot of things that they just, like the parent-children relationship, just, they don't hear everything, right? But then like an uncle or a friend or a family friend will say something, and it just lands and hits so different to the child because they just have a different listening, I guess, of that being. And yeah, I think that's the beauty of like that old tribal living. It was, we weren't raised by one or two parents and that's it, right? Like we lived in community. Kids learned from older siblings and cousins and other relatives. They had aunts and uncles and cousins that, you know, we were just raising and imprinting. And I talked about this, you know, in sessions that I have with people. It's like, if our nervous system learns through templating and not through being directed, right? Well, if you lived in a tribe and then you sat with grandfather and grandmother and you sat with uncle and aunt and you sat with older cousin or older sibling or whatever it is, like you're just constantly getting templates from all these different people. And so you just have so much more capacity because you're around so many other beings. Today, it's not like that. And I think we were even yesterday, we were just sitting and talking to, we had two couples here. And we were talking about how kids today are just so different because of the addition of screens that, you know, kids in like Shia's grade, he's in 8th grade. Most of the boys, I think girls innately just have a lot more ability to communicate and have conversations and, you know, talk to each other. But boys, we're not really wired that way per se. Just even from an animal standpoint, like we're not wired that way. We don't like talk about our emotions or our day or anything like that, right? We're very like matter of fact. So when you add to that like a 12-year-old, 13-year-old who are also self-conscious and all this stuff, and then you put phones in their hands, it's like the ultimate avoidance coping mechanism. It's like just hide in videos, and they don't know how to communicate with each other, let alone adults. But like it's crazy.
Yeah, I would be for 100% if they would make phones illegal for underage children as much as alcohol or cigarettes or anything else is, because I think developmentally a phone is potentially more dangerous than any of those things. Yeah.
Well, you know, I think it was you were telling me this, or I don't know where I heard it, but it's like, you know, as parents, people think that when you give your kid a phone, you're giving them access to the world, but what you're actually doing is giving the world access to your kid.
Yeah.
And at this time in their lives, when they are so impressionable and so their brains are just being molded, it is so easy. And it happens to adults too. So it's like, you don't need to look past media to realize how brainwashed 99% of the world is. It's like you talk to people, especially about like politics, for example, it's like no one has an original thought. Like no one. It is literally just regurgitated garbage based on whatever media you are watching. I don't give a shit how informed you are. Really, like all we're doing subconsciously is we're seeking, and we don't have to seek because there's algorithms. It's literally anything that strengthens your belief and worldview is what you watch and what you consume. Anything that goes against that, you reject. And this is just human nature. And it's true for anything. And if that's what's working on adults and we have no say in control of it, think about how that's impacting a 12, 13, 14-year-old developing brain that is just being inundated with shit that they might not even understand, but it's like it's creating pathways.
Sure.
And pathways.
I would say furthermore, if you're older, we have some contrast. We remember the world that was versus the world that's become. And when you're young and you grew up in that world, and you really don't have that other tether, I think, there's more perceptibility there. I think that's true, by the way, with the older generation as well, who's not so tech savvy and maybe doesn't know how to do research or to tell, false from fiction. And again, we all fall to that. But I saw a meme one time that's like about, stopping like political banter in the family. And it was like a woman's like, I put parental controls on my parents' phones so they can't go on CNN or Fox News. And now that there's peace in the family.
That's super smart.
Because it's the same thing, right? Because the hooks work in both directions. The algorithms are literally feeding us, the things that drive us crazy emotionally and just hijacking that emotion. I was watching a really great interview. I forget his name. His last name is Weinstein's a very smart guy, obviously. But he's like, we're not being shown opinion. He's like, at this point in time, it's so clever, like how this stuff is done. And again, there's a lot of stuff coming out here I won't mention here because it's not as relevant to the stuff that we talk about. But it's like a lot has changed over the last 8 years in terms of how our intelligence agencies are doing things online, and it's scary, to some degree. But at the same time, I think that's what brings back to kind of bringing back focus to this work. It's like what's happening is happening, right, guys? Like we can get into despair, we can get into all that, but like you guys know, humans have gone through very challenging periods, eras, generations, eons, right? This has been going on for like thousands of years. This is not new. I love when people say like, oh, this has never happened before. I'm like, really? What about the last 2,000 years where that was happening nonstop? I'm like, now we're just having a conversation about it and acknowledging that it's occurring. Like that's a pretty different thing. And I would say an advancement and an acknowledgement, like we all talk about becoming more aware. Well, an awareness of something is at least awareness of something. Your response to it still might be whatever it might be, but the fact that we're able to look and have conversations, right, about human trafficking and things like that a few years ago were not on the lips of anybody, and we're conspiracy theory, where now it's like, of course that's happening, right? And of course that's been happening forever. Slavery has been happening forever. These have been power over power under traits of humanity, and I believe we're in a wildly accelerated time for human evolution, going in a very positive direction, mind you, which is not what the media wants you to think is happening. But over like every data point, and anybody who actually knows anything about what's happening on planet Earth, every data point on planet Earth is like the best it's ever been. Okay, and there's certainly things we can work on, environmental issues, all sorts of stuff, right? We can't turn a blind eye, but like we need to also affirm that we've done good work on this planet and stuff like that, and that it really can only get better. But what that requires is us not falling into these traps over and over again. And part of that is also learning how to not avoid sensations that don't feel good, because you can go down the dirty path of despair, what's happening in political movements and stuff like that. And when you fall into that despair, that energetic system, whoever has an agenda to make that energetic system come to pass, is winning the game. Because that's what they want, like that. If things were to continue the status quo, and I don't think that they can. I don't think what we're seeing is a full systemic meltdown of old systems being unable to support the new consciousness, right? And anytime that happens, you are going to see the old fight for its place, like any other system would, like any other human would, or any other animal would, because when something feels like it's dying or losing control, it reacts harshly, right?
Yeah.
So we can believe that has power, and then that gives it power. Or you can say, hey, there's fear arising within me because of what I'm viewing. Well, number one, you have a choice what you watch and what you don't watch, right? You don't have to watch what's being propagated into everybody's human brain. That's your choice. The second thing is you can learn how to sit with that response within you, because that response within you is primal and not new and has been there for your entire life. And it's one of the reasons that you suffer. It's one of the reasons that you don't feel free. And so, like, these moments are these incredible opportunities to actually give freedom to anybody who seeks it. Now, you do have free will. You don't ever have to do any fucking spiritual work at all in this life. You don't have to do any developmental work at all in this life. And that's fine. And chances are you're going to live a life that is filled with fear, antagonisms, dysregulation, challenges, right? Like that's just the pattern of that life. And what we work on here, regardless of whether you share our opinions or not, disregard all of that. I'm not here to promote a certain way to think or anything else like that. I'm here to promote you learning how to be with what's arising in your life in a way that adds more compassion, more well-being, more safety to who you are. And then these systems lose power over you. And I don't think these systems want that, which is why psychedelics and a lot of other things that change the way people think and act have been banned or told you to not use them or put into a scary light. Because when people come out of apathy, they're very hard to control. When people can feel into their own intuition and are self-referencing themselves, they're very hard to control.
Yeah.
And, I don't really know what the world of tomorrow gets to look like, but I also think we need to value that the world has gone through many political changes. The world has gone through many power changes. And then we should expect that whatever world we grew up in, whatever status quo we grew up in, is not going to hang around forever. And that we as a species need to better learn how to surrender and let go and allow for the changes that are necessary to happen.
Are you feeling inspired by these podcasts? Is this approach striking a chord with you? Imagine taking this journey even further with personal coaching from Guy and I, right from your own home on Zoom. Join us at our next live event. They happen quarterly. It's an accessible, cost-effective way to dive deep into these transformative practices, not just theoretically, but experientially. Attendees often share that they've experienced unprecedented levels of peace, support, forgiveness, and awareness. Remember, healing isn't just a mental exercise. It must be felt and released through the body. So here's a special gift just for you, our valued listener. Visit intuitivemind.live and use the coupon code OLDSOUL to receive 25% off your ticket. The Intuitive Mind event is unlike any other. So impactful that many participants return multiple times, some as many as 10, 12, even 15 times. Plus, once you register, we'll immediately send you a recording of a previous event so that you can start practicing right away. Don't miss this opportunity. Go to intuitivemind.live, secure your spot for our next live event using the coupon code OLDSOUL, and start your transformative journey today. Now, back to the show. Here's the thing that I think is what you started with that is really, really important is this path that we are on as humans in this evolution. And you guys just check in for yourself. You tell me, and let me know in the comment box, like, how fast are things coming your way? Do you guys notice that it's like a revving up where life just keeps coming faster and faster and faster and faster? It's like there's a bubbling that evolution is wanting for all of us. And it feels to me, and pretty much everyone we work with, that it's just getting faster and faster and faster and faster. And if that's your experience of life, do you actually think that it's going to slow down? Or do you think that there's something that you're going to do or something that you don't know that's somehow going to get you off of this hyper fast, drive through evolution. And if you're at this place where you're going, okay, it is getting faster, and I don't see it stopping in the next year or 5 or even 10, whatever it might be, then really the only option that I see is focusing heavily and acquiring new skill sets to be with that which is inevitably coming. Right? Like if you knew you were going into a boxing fight, right? Like you were just, for whatever reason in a year, you need to box in the ring. Well, what would you do? Right? You'd hire a boxing coach and you'd get really good to the best of your ability in that year to go boxing. Right? It just makes sense. Like when we go on vacation, most of us, right, before we go on vacation, if we know we're going to be in a bathing suit, whatever it is, right, like you just watch what you eat more and you take care of yourself and you do all these things that you normally wouldn't do, right? You're like preparing for that future. Well, this is the future as I see it. It's an inevitability. It's the time of evolution. Like this is what's happening. And if you can sit there and stick your head in the sand and hope that at some point it just kind of like gonna take care of itself, I mean, do you really think that that's a good solution? And the truth is that in everything that we have experienced, both for ourselves and our clients, I'm telling you right now, like this work is so simple. And if you work the work, it just works and it takes care of itself. And so whatever that looks like for you, and whatever way that you choose your own participation, quote unquote, in your evolution, I'm telling you right now though, like reading a book, even once a month or once a week, or listening to a podcast or coming to the Tuesday tune-up, like however this lands for you, this is not the work. The book is not the work. The video, not the work. The meditations, that's the start of the work. The being in connection, the starting to actually do, like the presence practices and the awareness practices and the sits, being able to sit with a one-on-one coach, being able to like have group community hold you, being able to open your system to receive support, being able to offer support, being able to open your system to receive your truth, your gifts, your wisdom. That's the work. And then that begins to transmit through you to your world. And so to me, it's like, what are we doing? If we're not working on the tuning fork in here and learning on how to shift that to emanate a new reality for ourselves, then we're kind of just going through the motions.
Yeah. And, some of you guys are saying stuff about COVID and Israel, and like just a little background, Elon and I are born to Ukrainian mother. And we grew up in Israel and then moved to the States in 89. So like ironically, everywhere that we're from is warring right now. And I'm married to a Lebanese woman. My brother-in-law is Iranian. And I can tell you, it all works. No problem. Right? So I say this all the time, I'm living evidence that this stuff is possible. And what I want to say is like, regardless of what's happening on the planet, again, like we can get really sucked into the drama and like we have family right there, right? But we are feeling it. We can feel it every day.
Guy even has it more because, like he said, he's married to a Lebanese family. Like our dad fought in the Israel-Lebanon war in the 80s, right? Like you just got to put all these things in perspective. Guys like in a whole other world because he's really feeling it on both sides.
Yeah. So, and so what I want to say about that is, obviously I have a lot of feelings about that, like everybody else. And here's what I come back to. It's like, is my practice circumstantial? It's as simple as that. Does my practice fall out when the circumstance changes? And the answer to that is really simple. It doesn't. It just doesn't. I see it's unfortunate of what our brain experiences in this physical material reality. And I hope, for me, I hope it's not avoidance on my part, that like I've gained this broader perspective that we just don't see the whole picture. And that there are events that happen on this planet that, even though they look horrific to a human being, they actually accelerate the spiritual development. That's what's really important to the souls on this planet. And sometimes that means a soul chooses to have disease in order to exit quicker so they can do their work from the other side and then come back in and help because they need a new body that has new energy and stuff like that, right? And again, this is all fugazi circumstance, like make up stuff on my part that makes me live a little bit easier in this world. But I've found a lot of evidence for this in my lifetime. And so if my fundamental beliefs is that everything is derived from a source of love. A human being can get very confused about what that means because we think love, that means only positive things. Where sometimes a parent does something to a child that the child doesn't understand and it can even be annoyed or even feel hate towards the parent, but the parent is doing it from a place of love to protect the child or to help them evolve spiritually or whatever it might be better, right? But the child doesn't understand, doesn't have the view to understand what the fuck is going on. And we're the same. We're bigger bodied children who certainly don't understand the complexity of this universe or reality or of anything else. And at best, we're pointing at stuff and making assessments that are probably not factual. So I think to myself, if it's all coming from that source, then I am going to honor whatever experience is being given to us. And my contention today is that we're all doing the best that we can from the experiences that we've had so far. And for some people, for whatever reason, again, picking up a gun might be the best that they can do because of how they feel inside and the lack of safety that they feel. And they need that to make them feel safe. Some people need to protest and go tell the government to go fuck themselves, right? Or whatever it might be. And that's okay too. And that's the best they can do with the experiences that they've had. And what we have found over the years, and I just to try to apply the micro to the macro, is that when a person is in pain, we have found that it's ineffective in that person's healing experience to go down into that pain with them. It seems like we have this silent agreement in society that if you're in pain, for me to be empathetic with you, I need to start experiencing that pain alongside with you.
Yeah.
And we've seen that for generations.
That's like helping them.
Yeah, like I'm helping you. Oh, you're in pain. I feel that pain with you. But all that does is it just creates more of that energy of that pain. In contrast, we can empathize and say, I do see you. And I get that you're in pain. And I'm going to be the stability. I'm going to be the one that holds the stability over here. And I'm going to reach my hand down. And when you're ready, you can grab it and I will pull you up to where I am. And this is no different than it is in the child-parent relationship. When the child is dysregulated, if the parent is dysregulated at the equal force, more dysregulation arises. But if the parent can hold that stability, they have their groundedness in their system, the child comes out of that dysregulation much faster and learns from the parent's example, energetic and physical. This is how we regulate ourselves in a dysregulated situation. And so when the world or a location on our planet is dysregulated, if we all go to fucking dysregulation when that happens, how are we helping? And that's what the internet and media has gotten extremely good at, is putting a microscope on an event on the planet and sending everyone into dysregulation. Because when you're dysregulated, you make terrible choices that you would never make from your own intuition if you actually felt into your system. And so it doesn't mean that I don't get that dysregulation in my system, but I've built a capacity to be able to acknowledge that dysregulation and then do the practices that I need to do to regulate myself again. And my hope is that by becoming a pillar of regulation on our planet, is that we will help those areas that are in dysregulation modulate themselves to regulation again, just like you would to a parent and a child. Again, everything mimics everything else. Such as below, so is above, such as above, so is below. And so the lessons that we're learning here are universal. You know, I've said this many times, but when I sat in my 10-day silent meditation of Vipassana, you go so deep in the system, you become so sensitive. These truths start coming forward, like this obvious nature of things. And you start getting, because you're feeling your own system and how it's constructed and how things work in there. And you realize, oh, this is the same way the cosmos works. And through going deep into your own system, you literally start understanding universal principles of the cosmos. Like, how do you think all these very smart people have come up with these things, right? Yes, there's the studies and the this and that, but like there's an aspect of them that their intuition. Einstein had all these intuition about things, these, thought experiments he would do, right? Deeply sitting with himself to uncover universal principles and truths that have vastly accelerated our perspective and our means to get technology, all the way to the atomic age, whether you think that's a good or a bad thing, right? So this is the way. And so either you can get wrapped up in the narrative of the day, which is, I think, what they prefer, because that keeps everything going the way that has gone. And if you want to see, I think we need to drop what we think the idea of equality is and really get to a place more of like this unified field consciousness, the oneness of things. That is not going to be identified by an idea. Maybe eventually we come up with a principle or an equation that determines that to some degree, but like it's going to come because we actually begin to live in a unified field experience. Okay. And I'm not exactly sure how to do that personally, but I can feel that the beginning of it is getting clarity over what everybody is dealing with at the individual level and having a broad perspective, because what has brought me an immense amount of peace in my life over the last few years is recognizing that everybody on this planet doesn't feel safe. Like, just stay with that for a moment, if you don't mind. Like, just ponder for yourself what it would be like to live on a planet that everyone doesn't feel safe. And then you'll get the picture of Earth immediately, or at least the human race on Earth immediately. This is what an animal does when an animal doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if everybody's not feeling safe, what you're watching is everybody trying to figure out how to feel safe. But everyone's doing it in like the physical sense of the word, instead of recognizing that safety is not something that we can acquire through our action. It's actually something we cultivate as an experience internally. It was a turning point in my life when I began to see this, when I self-realized this. And then what we teach here are the principles and practices on how to cultivate that safety in your system. What I've seen time and time again, Elon has to, with hundreds, even thousands of students at this point in time, is that when people start feeling safe, they start acting completely different. They start experiencing well-being for the first time in their life. Their relationships balance out and even out. A lot of the strife and things that they do in their relationships kind of go to the wayside. There's more love in their life. There's more compassion with themselves, and so they act more compassionately towards the world. The media of the day is not important anymore. Alcohol seems to disappear. It's not that important anymore. Why? Because they're not avoiding anything. And so that's the thing. It's like, we want to learn the skills of, oh shit, when my system doesn't feel safe, what do I do to help myself in learning in that moment how to leverage this lack of safety and to actually cultivate more safety? And as far as we can tell, there's no culture, no paradigm. Very little of this is currently being taught, certainly not at the parental level to the children, because they don't know how to do it. And so, a run amok the world has gone, not feeling safe for many thousands of years. And we're getting to that point where I think we're all feeling like enough is enough. And we can communicate now at a more broad scale than we could certainly even 50 years ago or 100 years ago, that we can share these messages very quickly. And this will be the last thing I say here. Just think about up until recently, really internet, maybe going back to the phone or even the creation of the television screen, there was no real way to share ideas with people in a fast way. An idea might be in a village and then spread to, 100 people, 200 people, and even that probably took some time. But then how to get that idea from this village to the next village.
Yeah.
And then to the next village and to the next village, right? Beyond that. And so like even me and Elon growing up, yeah, like there's stuff that happened in your hometown, but like did you have any fucking clue what was happening in the town next to you or how those people thought? No idea. So we took this idea of the small town, small farm, whatever village, where ideas propagated very slowly to now ideas propagate instantaneously all over the planet simultaneously. And we have to assume when we accelerate communication and ideas that quickly, that in itself is going to cause chaos, because you're taking people who naturally live within our own life stubbornly in our own status quo. We want things to remain the same because as long as things remain the same, I'm still safe. And then things change very quickly and you go, oh, fuck it. Like, this feeling of not feeling safe. But that's kind of what we did when we opened up this communication stream. And I think it's obviously by design, because in order for the unit to become oneness, the communication has to be pervasive to the entire unit simultaneously. So I think we're in a time where this chaos is an opportunity for us to clean that up. There's always going to be pendulum swings, right? Like you get a new toy, it's like, ah, and it's like, oh shit, here's all the stuff it's taken away. And like, eventually we will come to this balance point. But again, part of that is realizing like you're being hypnotized by design. They're telling you that they're doing it pretty much every single day, and that they themselves are hypnotized by the machines they built to hypnotize everybody. And so like the only way out of that is to begin to learn how to deal with this discomfort in the system, come out of that psychosis and say, thank you so much for the lessons that I'm getting. And like the world's going to be better for it, because we need regulated systems, as many as we can get all the time. We're going to keep seeing changes at an extremely fast rate right now. I would not bank on the world that's going back to anything that you recognized as a child, where there is no going back. So instead of trying to get back to something, focus on how do we pave this road smoother for everybody else that's coming behind us.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was like saying. It's, to me, our generation is this gateway generation. We are the ones like are bridging the gap between the old and the new. And the more we can entrain in our systems to find love, unconditional love, compassion, empathy, receive and give support, we're literally laying grooves for the next generation to follow. And then they can take it to wherever it is that they're gonna take it. But for me, that's I tell people all the time, like I don't train myself and do all the practices to be a better coach or to be able to offer you guys like more wisdom or more any of that. Guy and I'm sure he agrees, like we do this primarily to be the best fathers and husbands and generally just people that we can be. But like for us, parenthood and being a husband is the reason we do all the work that we do, so that we can show up for our children in the way that even if my parents wanted to, they couldn't show up because they didn't have access to this work. And I know that in me doing that and giving them that, like that's the gift, because now I know how they're going to be able to operate and live in the world. And you have to give yourself that first. You can't give to others what you don't have in yourself. And so I say, like, and this phrase rubs people the wrong way sometimes, especially because most of the people that are attracted to this work are givers and, we take care of everyone. But it's like in the beginning, you have to be selfish and you have to turn inwards and give yourself at least 4-6 months of just deep me work. And that's very edgy for a lot of people. And that's what it takes. If you actually want to create even more impact in the world, like you have to first be able to give this to yourself.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, where we have the most influence, right, is with our primary circles and our concentric circles and stuff like that. And, like, even if you do nothing to influence anybody else in this world, it's like, just do your work And what we have found over and over again is like, all of us are way more energetically influential than we know. Whether you're talking to people or not is not the point. Everybody talks about it, but nobody seems to understand it. It's our state of beingness that does all the work, right? So it's like, I remember I was on an ayahuasca experience. It was very difficult. And I'm often shown this grand path that I'm on and stuff like that. And sometimes I'm like, I tell spirit, so to speak, I say, hey, I'm at this place where I'm like, I don't know that that's what I want to give my life over to. What if I decide that I don't want to do that? And they're always so patient and loving. And they say, that's perfectly fine. They're like, there's no demand of you to be anything other than what you want to be in this world. They say, even if you just take this energy that you're feeling right now, this grounded state, this open heart, and they're like, if you just sat there in your state of beingness and emanated that into the world, they're like, that would be enough. And that has given me an immense amount of solace in my life, because there's no pressure on any of us to become anything other than what we want to be. You really do have free choice. But I don't know about you guys, like self-liberation, self-realization, the end to my suffering. These are things that are fucking important to me. And I think truth be told, the primary purpose of embodying for a soul. Why would a soul that has access to all things and be in love and light ever choose to slow itself down to the point where it becomes dense matter and go through all these experiences, if not to learn something, right? So if we're here to learn in that way, and that's the only thing that's required of you, we get to really feel how influential our state is. Not our actions, but our state. And if that's the case, you can sit around at home and meditate all day long and change the world. I don't have any doubts about that would be enough. So I don't feel that I need to get involved with political movements. I don't feel that I need to get involved with what's happening in my homelands with war, because that's not what am I going to go talk to the prime minister and be like, you should really stop doing what you're doing. I don't have any influence in that way, but I can talk to family in Israel, and they're in fear and worry and whatever it might be. And I get to be stable for them. That's really different. So those are the things I spend my time doing, because I feel like I am empowered in that way. And for me, it's been a beautiful experience.
Yeah. All right, lovies.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody before we close out, our next live event from the recording of this is 11 days out. You can go to intuitivemind.live. Let me put this in the thing for you. Coupon is, we still have a promo, I think, for another day or two. You can go to intuitivemind.live and put in coupon code HALF50. It'll save you 50% off your ticket price. Again, the live event is on September 14th. And the 15th, it's amazing. I'm super excited for this event. Probably the biggest, most amount of people we've ever had at an event. Energy should be amazing. And we really want to remind you guys that, healing is a three-prong approach. It's learning how to do the practices that you do within yourself, practices that you do in relationship to another, and then the practices you do at the level of group. We call that self-to-self. Self-to-other, and self-to-group practices. And so this is a really important piece of this healing process, is doing work at the level of group. So give yourself this beautiful gift. It's super intimate. It's the only experience that Elon and I have where we spend, not 2 hours training you on something, but a prolonged period of time over 2 days. And so that really just creates a different kind of energy. So we'd love to have you there. We think you'll get a kick out of it. It's a beautiful experience if you haven't had it yet. And if you've been there before and you haven't been there again, just know that every time people come back, we've had people do this experience 18 times now. It's not the content, it's really the energy. And every single time because you're upgrading yourself, you're going to hear and experience this from a new place, just like we do, because every event for us feels totally new as well. So, give yourself that gift, be there with this community. It'll just upgrade every aspect. So love you guys. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, dear one, for choosing to share a bit of your day with us. We value you greatly. And as a way to give back and help you to deepen these practices, we want to invite you to join our incredible community on Facebook. You can do so easily by going to joinoldsouls.com and ask for an invite. This is our private community where old souls and seekers are able to grow and share their journey with others. We hold exclusive weekly live streams, we answer your personal questions, and offer valuable insights that we won't be able to share here on the podcast. So again, just head to joinoldsouls.com and grab your invite today. And as always, if you enjoy this podcast, please head to iTunes and leave us a review. It's the only way other people can find this show, so if it's making a difference in your life, please share the love. Until we meet again, have an amazing week, dear one.
America. We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. By honoring your sacred vocation of nursing, you impact your family, your friends, and your community. At Grand Canyon University, our online RN to BSN, MSN, or DNP degree programs allow you to balance online coursework with local in-person clinical, practicum, or immersion hours. Find your purpose at GCU. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu.